Welcome to the Brooklyn Podcast with yours truly, Anthony Puccio, my co-host, Colin Helwig. Colin, we are at the midway point of the season. The Brooklyn Nets are 14 and 26. The official midway will be after they play the Clippers, but 14 and 26. Sean Marks recently spoke with Brian Lewis of the New York Post, and Sean Marks is not one to really show his cards or be so blunt, but I think this is the most blunt that he's ever been since he's become GM of the Brooklyn Nets. And he told Brian Lewis that we're going to have to be systematic with some of the decisions we make, and they may not always be in line with winning the next game or putting the most talent out there. Now, the Nets were losing games. They were on their longest losing streak, which was five, entering into that game against the Portland Trailblazers. And then they stun everybody and win this game against another tanking team. But my takeaway from this is that we're halfway through the season, and now Sean Marks, after kind of a roller coaster of a season, kind of being good, respectable, good coach, to tanking, to then winning, kind of confusing. What are your takeaways so far from halfway point? What do you think about Sean Marks' comments, and does that have any effect and impact on the players and the message that it sends across the organization?
Yeah, systematically, that's a funny word, isn't it? I think we all heard that and thought tanking. That's the T word everyone's scared to say, and no general manager, no coach, no front office executive is going to come out and say that. But I think what he was trying to do there is kind of like soften the blow for you're going to tank a little bit more and more as the season plays out. Like after you're eliminated from the playoffs, I feel like that's when everyone says, okay, I understand why you're not trying to win games. It makes sense why you are trying to develop your younger players, why your younger, maybe not as good players are getting minutes. So when that moment comes and it's going to be abrupt and it's going to be all of a sudden Jalen Wilson is probably starting over Cameron Johnson if he's still on the team, things like that. He's kind of softening the blow for when that happens. So it's not such an abrupt kind of like shock impact, like, hey, what the hell is going on? Like what? So everyone's confused. And I think the fans know that's coming, the players know that's coming, but it's something for the people in the organization. Whether if you're at the top of the food chain, you probably have a better idea of what's going on. But if you're someone down low who's working for the team and you're invested, and it's your job to build a good team, no matter what the agenda is, no matter what if you're a tank team, if you're a superstar team, a lot of these guys, the players themselves too, you're playing for your career. It's your career. You want to do well.
Yeah.
You want to score points. You want to sell the most tickets if you're a ticket guy in the front office, things like that. So for those people, it's kind of just like it's not that we thought Sean Marks didn't know what was going on, but it's him saying, yeah, this is kind of the path that we're on, is quietly, as best as he can say it, as if almost like he's at court right now. And, you got to lawyer everything that you say, where the league isn't going to be, hey, what the hell? You just said you're going to lose games on purpose. I'm going to fine you, but you still get that message across.
Yeah, yeah. And I applaud Sean Marks for being transparent. This is something that as fans, as reporters, we've called out over the years during his tenure here. Like he's never really come out, and again, it's not even just about showing your cards, but he's, like he said, he's softening the blow. He's letting fans know, like, we're not going to go win and try and win 40 games this year like last year.
Mm-hmm.
Now,
Yeah.
I mentioned the whole, the message to the organization, the players, whoever it might be. It's a little bit confusing just because they were solid in the beginning of the year. They do have a couple of veteran players on the team, and it's very open. Uh, it's not egregious. They won last night against the Portland Trailblazers, right? Like, it's not like they're out here trying to lose, or they're not embarrassing themselves per se. But you look at what Ben Simmons says. He says, after that game against, I think it was Utah, he says, like, we have to, we're players, like, we have to compete. We don't want to lose. Like, we have to show up and do our job and try to win basketball games with the unit that we have. You had D'Angelo Russell kind of, I don't know if it was passive aggressive. I don't know if it was taken out of context, but somebody asked him if he was going to play tonight. And he says, well, we have a goal to reach. And that was after the comments about them not putting out the best talent to win games, right? Kessler Walker sat because of rest. So my point is that it is out there. It's open. I applaud Sean Marks for his transparency with the fan base specifically, because as you and I have discussed on this show several times, the fan base is often split. You have people that want to win, people that want to lose. Nobody's wrong for how they want to root for the team. But when you have the general manager of the team saying, "Hey, look, like we're not going to try and win games," like as simple as that. We're tanking without saying that we're tanking. At least you clear the air for the fans. Like don't expect us to do what we did in the beginning of the season. But I just think Colin, to wrap up my point, is like they were pretty solid in the beginning of the season. They have a couple veterans on the team, and they have a couple guys that are playing for contracts and playing really for a career sake. So it's a strange thing. It's an anomaly for Sean Marks.
Yeah, no, it's and I'll tell you this, like as a reporter, it's refreshing to hear something like that. I understand that if I were to ask Jordy Fernandez or Sean Marks, like, so how many games do you think you have to lose to get Cooper Flag? They're not going to be able to answer that question because they're going to be like, all right, I'm not talking to you or I will get fined, Marshawn Lynch style. I get that. They get
Right.
that. So I can't do that. That's the same for everyone else down there. But it's at the back of our minds and it's at the back of their minds. And we have to do this silly little charade. And now what he said again was not that. It wasn't that abrupt, but it quietly tells everyone we get it. Like we hear you. Succession reference.
I like that. Do they like? I'm wondering because last year when they sat all those players against the Bucks, they got fined.
Mhm.
Um, I wonder if they get fined if this continues to kind of spew out. If it's the players that are speaking out and they're frustrated, like the Ben Simmons comments, those rung loud and clear. Like
Mhm.
he's not happy about it. And the irony behind Ben Simmons saying it is just it's just so poetic, right? As in Nets world, like
Yeah.
it is perfect. But
Yeah.
I'm curious to see if they get fined. They got fined for that game against the Bucks last year,
Yeah.
and we know the NBA is, this is not something that they're necessarily proud of.
Here's my take on the fining thing, though. It's a little bit early. I think that, there's still room where if you win a couple games, it's not the end of the world. You can make up for it. We're getting close to where it's crunch time, but still early.
Yeah,
But I think when you really get down to it and you can start to look at the schedule and say, this is a big game. It's an important game for us to lose in terms of our tanking agenda. You can't not do it. You can't go for the win because you're like, oh, I'm scared Adam Silver's gonna find me. Like I think you need to call his bluff. And even if he does find you, imagine like going like, oh, we didn't get Cooper Flag because I was scared Adam Silver was gonna find me. That's that's not being a shark. That's not being a good businessman if you're Joe Tsai or if you're Sean Marks and you're trying to build a winner. You need to say, like F your damn rules, just like, however many now the CBA kind of really fucks you from here on out. Excuse my language for going above the cap. But like these teams that want to win a championship, they're saying, screw how much you're going to tax me, how much you're going to fine me. I guess that's the same thing as getting taxed over the cap or whatever. I'm going to go for the win. And the Nets aren't even getting fined yet for tanking. So I think if you get to it, you have to say, I'll eat the however $100,000 if it gets me Cooper Flag. Then you do it. You know what I mean? It's
yeah,
there's a winning comes at a price, sometimes in
yeah.
dollar figures.
And I think if you do get fined and you're the Nets, then you're looking at the 6, 7 teams that are worse than you, the Washington Wizards and these other guys, and you're saying, well, what about them, right? Like
Mm,
this is egregious too. So you
yeah,
mentioned a good point,
very much so.
and I just want to touch on this and like we'll put it in the past, but from a reporter's perspective, I don't know whether to write, when the Nets lose, like the Nets did what they needed to do tonight, or the Nets sunk to, they lost their fifth straight
Oh,
game.
an impossible
You
task.
know, it's you're kind of running into a double edged sword here.
Yeah, oh yeah, very much so. You have no idea, or you do have an idea, but yes, no, I sympathize with you. It's an interesting, and it's always interesting in the Nets Daily comments too. I know I
Oh
go through the
God,
same with Lucas. You kind of got to dance a
I
line.
you got to dance a little bit. Maybe write 2 sentences for those that want to lose, for those that want to win. This is
Yeah,
good. This
yeah,
is
yeah, yeah.
bad. You know, but Con, again, we're at the halfway point of the season. We made a lot of predictions on this show on the Nets Daily Roundtable. What's one or two that you really want to call out, whether you were right, whether you were wrong, whatever it might be?
I guess this comes back to the conversation we just had. Are you happy? Are you sad when wins come in? But I think we all expected them to be a losing team, which they are at the end of the day. By definition, they got a losing record, 10 games under 500. But it hasn't been as bleak as I feel like we thought it was going to be. I read through our answers, and a lot of it was I think people are there was a sense where it was like people aren't going to they're not fully grasping yet that a rebuild is tough and a rebuild is a lot of dark days and embarrassing losses and stuff like that. We really haven't had if there's been an embarrassing loss, I can't think of one. There have been a couple where it seemed like the team kind of lost fight, and I know Jordy Fernandez called that out post game. But most of the games that they lose, they lost one because they maybe had like six active players, or they just kind of ran out of steam, whether it was by talent or by again guys off the bench. I think at least for me, the Tyrese Martin game against Phoenix after I forget if that was before or after the Phoenix game, but those two games, one after the other include especially the Phoenix one. It's against Kevin Durant. Tyrese Martin is a guy who went to the high school next to mine. That was more I got more joy out of that game and being able to cover that game than I thought I would have had for the entire season. At any time a guy who is a two-way comes up and bangs 8 threes, that's you're gonna have a smile on your face no matter what. So I think just kind of like a positive takeaway. We don't have a lot of those to talk about right now, but that is one. It has not been this like sad doom and gloom affair.
No, no. They've softened the blow, especially having a good coach like Jody Fernandez. And like you said, the fact that they made it entertaining for at least 2 months was house money for us
Yeah.
as fans, as reporters, like whatever you want to look at. Like it was never even supposed to be that way from the go. Now, my preseason prediction on this team was 19 wins. They're at 14 right now. They're obviously going to take a dip in the second half of the season.
They'll lose more in the second half than the first half. I'd be willing to bet.
For sure. But I said 19 wins, and I don't think this team is going 5-36.
Yeah.
Now, I could be completely wrong. With some of the lineups that they've been fielding out there, maybe they win 8 or 9. I think they still make it to 24, 25 wins. But I was way off about that. I said that after like the first or second podcast of the regular season where I was like, well, these guys are out here. They're playing hard, and they snuck some tough ones out. They were beating some really, really good teams early in the season.
Yeah.
But right now, Jake Fisher had said that Cam Johnson, they're not in a rush to trade him, but they kind of like need to trade him like yesterday. Like this tanking team. I tend to think that Cam is part of their future. I think Sean Marks signed him for a reason. He wanted him to be around with this team, but he's too damn good for a tanking team. We don't need to fall down this rabbit hole, but my 19 win prediction is way off because of Cam Johnson and is way off because of Dennis Schroeder. Now, one of my predictions, Colin, I'm like a point off from Ben Simmons' stat line.
Oh, for real?
Yeah. He's like 6, 7, and 7 right now. I had him at like 6, 8, and 7 or something like that.
That's
you said he was shooting threes.
I was gonna say that was the other one that is looking a little curious. A couple months after, I did say that Ben Simmons would start shooting some threes. Granted, if you were to bet on that, it would have been super plus money. So it was a plus money bet. I did not think it was like a given, but I did say Nick Claxton would also be taking threes. Just because it's a rebuilding team. If there's ever a time to polish your game to try new stuff, it's this season. So Ben Simmons has not taken a three. If he hasn't taken one this year for those exact reasons, I don't know that he ever will. But hey, Nick Claxton has been letting it fly. So has Daron Sharp. So, I like to see that. I did throw in a little Brook Lopez comparison because, the Nets kind of taught Brook how to shoot. I don't know if we're going to get there with Claxton, but, we talk a lot about how we're just kind of looking for things to get us excited this season. Nick Claxton taking a jump shot gets me excited every time because it's like, oh, is it going to go in? Is it going to airball? Like if he goes in, this is sick, especially if it's a three. So shout out to Nick for that and Daron.
We're pulling at straws here a little bit.
Yeah, very much so.
Again, we've made it to the halfway point.
Yes,
we're almost at the trade deadline. We're almost at the All-Star break. I did mention in my preseason predictions that, and maybe I phrased it wrong, but I said that people were going to get mad at Jordy Fernandez. Not because he's a bad coach, but because he's going to be a good coach and they're going to win games. And people are like, please stop. And I think we saw it and we are like kind of seeing it. Like I know he's on board with everything that Sean Marks and the organization has to do. But again, he's someone like Ben Simmons says, you got to show up to these games and try and win the damn game, especially as a rookie head coach. Like,
Mhm.
I don't see people mad at Jordy Fernandez, so I think I phrased it wrong, but the idea and the sentiment was still the same. Like, we
Yeah.
see this, like, yo, like, stop, Jordy, like,
think
please stop.
I think if mad might not be the word, but frustration. I think you can be frustrated, and maybe not so much with him, but that this is happening right now. And the thing is, for as much as we talk about tank commanders wanting the Nets to lose and so on, at the end of the day, the goal is to one day have a championship team. And to have a championship team, you want a coach who wants to win games. I don't think people would be too happy if Jordy Fernandez was like, I don't know, if they had won like 2 games and Jordy Fernandez was just putting out these god awful lineups and no one was trying at all. Like, you could probably there'd be a certain faction of people that would be able to convince themselves this is good. We're like a lock to get Cooper Flag, but I don't think that would be like a mass group. I think at the end of the day, you want players that are coming and going to say, in case they are here for the long haul, you want players that are going to come in and say, I want to win every game, like F your tank, like I'm a competitor. This is who I am. This is what I'm going to do. This is Brooklyn Nets basketball. You want that out of a player, you want it out of a coach. So I think anyone getting mad at these guys, like you got something else going on that's wrong with you. Frustration, I understand, but anger, come on now. They're doing their job out there.
I mean, I'm basing this strictly off of Nets X, but like people are angry at Sean Marks, like get rid of Cam Johnson. They're saying the same thing about Schroeder. It's like he's got to
Yeah.
get the best deal possible. He
Yeah.
can't.
Cam is such a funny one because I totally understand. Like, they look so much worse when he is off the court compared to on the court. But the reason the Nets got a good deal for Mikal Bridges is because they waited for a king's ransom deal from the New York Knicks. They're going to have the opportunity. What we talked about before, Sean Marks making systematic decisions or whatever he said. One of those is going to be Cam Johnson playing less minutes if they decide to keep him. And he's not playing tonight. I don't want to get the Nets in trouble, but I didn't see anything happen to Cam Johnson last night, and he's out tonight. I guess they could do maybe their avenue is rest and it's a back to back. That would make sense, but he's not a guy who typically does that either. You know what I mean? So it'll come. They'll dial him back one way or another to tank when it gets to that point. But I also understand the trade him now because if he's off the table, then you don't have to deal with it, and we can't act like when he is not on the team, the Nets look like a surefire. Like, this team is going to lose,
Right,
and end up
right.
top 3 or 4.
I'm not talking about a superstar here. We're talking about a good basketball player who's on
Yes.
the rise, but he's not going to win them 50 games. But I do want to move on to some players that might be able to win you 50 games. And the rumor speculation, Colin, it's buy or sell segment of this podcast. Zion Williamson, he's kind of been a name that's floated around. Obviously, whatever's going on in New Orleans, it's not working out. Last night, I think people could be pulling at straws, but he mentioned Brooklyn as one of the places he really likes to play and said it's underappreciated. He talked about the music, the aura, that he rocks with Brooklyn.
Mm-hmm.
You buy or sell that Zion Williamson could one day be a Brooklyn Net, and would you like that?
I would buy it. Would I like it? It depends on the year. I think we're a little bit too far ahead of schedule because we cry every night about D'Angelo Russell, and him winning games for the Nets. Who's a lot better than D'Angelo Russell? A healthy Zion Williamson.
Right.
So I think it would make zero sense to trade for him this year. If even if it's for a bottom dollar, I'll still say it. Like, I think you have a better chance of being a good team in your future if you bully out for 2 years and you get good young players than if you slingshot your timeline and you take Zion Williamson, who he's great when he's right, but when he's not, you really have no idea what you're getting out of him. It's a risky gamble. So I will buy it in the long term though, because he's too good when he's right. I can't imagine the Pelicans are ready to move on just yet. The smoke is that they're definitely close, but I don't think it's just yet. I think it could be another year, more likely even 2 more years. See where that contract goes. I know it's not guaranteed. I would imagine some of the money comes off as we progress, but the reason I would say buy is that he is very much the Nets love reclamation projects,
Yeah,
specifically those that have been high draft picks. I think you had a tweet a couple days ago. Some of
yeah,
the guys were one of them was Dwight Howard just coming over transactionally, but the Nets have taken flyers on guys who have been high draft picks and have not panned out. And, their system has either, at the very least, gotten them to be, like a role player again somewhere else. So he fits the bill just enough. I just think that the timelines are a little bit off.
yeah. It was. The Nets have had six number one overall picks, former number one overall picks since they moved to Brooklyn. Five of them under Sean Marks, one being Dwight Howard.
Hmm.
Um, as you said, they like reclamation projects. I ever since Zion was in college, he's always wanted to play in New York.
Hmm.
And I look at his situation and I ask myself, like, is this somebody that, their body has failed them, or do they just simply not want to play in New Orleans? Like, does he just simply not want to be there, right? He said the right things last night. He said New Orleans is my favorite place to play. I know I have to be safe and yada yada yada, but like if this is something, where there's smoke, there's fire type of situation, like I would love to see him at Barclays Center. Just not right now. This
Yeah.
summer, I would love to see if they can buy as low as you possibly can. Don't empty out the cupboard of picks. Don't mortgage your future for this guy. But like, if it's an attainable package where it takes a couple of first round picks, Zion Williamson, when he's on the court, is arguably one of the best when he plays.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, and he's exactly the type of guy that, if he's right, Brooklyn Nets fans would get behind in a heartbeat with his crazy slams, his hyperactive game, like his dominant, like just that lefty big man that's just gonna beast you in the paint or step back and hit a three. Like again, I know he hasn't played a lot. I know it's like easy to bash on us right now for praising Zion or for even talking about this, but he is someone that I've thought about for the past year or two. Like, can he go to Brooklyn, because he's always wanted to play in New York, and now he made these comments. And I think people, maybe it's wishful thinking, but or at least considering the idea of it after the season.
Mhm.
Now moving on to the next superstar speculation. To Giannis Antetokounmpo, Mark Stein in his Steinline newsletter had written that he had spoken to team rivals, and all of them circled back to the same thing, that the Nets are trying to position themselves someday, and he explicitly said someday, to get Giannis Antetokounmpo. We've touched on this a lot, but this was a not a bomb, but like in the midst again of like a crazy tank where Sean Marks is literally saying like we're losing games on purpose. We have 4 first round picks. Like, where is this coming from? Like, is it the latter? On the last episode, I said to you, like, I would like them to keep their minds open this summer to drafting these guys, having good draft capital, drafting at least 1 or 2 good picks this year,
Mhm.
and seeing what's out there. Is this what you think they're doing? Like staying flexible, building through the draft, and maybe acquiring that superstar in the process?
Yeah, I think what the Brooklyn Nets are doing right now is I don't know if they've yet to acquire a star, so it's hard to say they're doing both right now. But the way I keep kind of conceptualizing it is if you're running like an option play in football, like where the quarterback or running back has the ball and you're running around the side and you're getting close to the sideline, and that whole time you got the ball and you can pitch it backwards to the running back if you want. Both you
Yeah.
guys are running, you're in unison, and they are just waiting. They're holding on to the ball as long as they are waiting to decide. They're holding on to it, and I think that's why fans get antsy because they see time keeps progressing and they haven't really locked. Like, you're hearing these things about stars, but you see how the team is going, and then one night they beat like a contender and it's like, what the hell, maybe they should be going for it more, and it makes people antsy. But that's exactly what they're doing. They're trying to stay flexible, whether it's by acquiring a star or if it's getting draft picks. If they strictly wanted to totally rebuild, build through the draft, then I think we would have seen, and we will see more deals where they are signing guy. They're taking on big contracts to get more picks. They are fully going future, 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 like SpongeBob doing the crunch or Squidward doing the
Yeah.
crunch in that episode of SpongeBob. But they're not. They have made so many salary dumps and cap manipulations over the past couple of years to preserve space for cap space in the next summer and the years to come. So the two avenues are both wide open. On the topic of Giannis, I don't want him to be a Brooklyn Net at all, especially if it's someday. Someday is the scariest thing to me because the idea of investing in a guy whose game is totally dependent on his athleticism in as his career progresses longer into his future as he gets older sounds like an absolute nightmare. And if it sounds like that, it sounds like they really, really want him if they've had this in the back of their minds for years. Terrifies me that they're going to give up some of those draft assets and say to the Milwaukee Bucks, who beat the Nets, won the championship the year the Nets should have won, the year the Nets were better, saying, okay, we're going to give you our future now and take your player who got you there after he beat us, and now he's going to be with us while he is just getting slower and getting older and still can't shoot the ball.
Yeah. Everything that you're saying, it's with the halfback option, whatever it might be, like
I hope I
weighing your
explained that
options.
right. I see
No,
it
no, you
clearly,
did.
but it's
No,
hard.
I know exactly what you're saying. But it's a good reference too. It's a good analogy. Like, yeah, they could hold the ball and run with it if they want to wait, or they can hand it off and do a little, do a little bit of both. Weigh their options. But with that being said, like, that doesn't sound like a long-term rebuild to me, which is music to my ears as as someone who covers the team and yourself too. Like, you don't want this to be 5 years.
No.
But I just found it interesting that something leaked, well, not even leaked, that Brian Lewis of the New York Post writes about how he has an exclusive with Sean Marks and they say they're tanking. And then, like, the next day, Mark Stein is talking to league sources and the rumblings are about Giannis. Now, again, whether true, not true, these are two credible reporters that bust their ass. And it's not that it's contradicting. It's more so that, to me, I'm thinking, okay, they're building as much draft capital. They're building financial flexibility in the future. It's not to say that they don't have a plan. It's actually that they have so many options that it's almost an embarrassment of riches.
Yeah.
And now they have a good coach. They have a good coach, too, on top of that, whether it's starting a rebuild or the rebuild is already underway, and next year or the year after, it's full-fledged. Like, Jordy, go do your thing. Now you got the players. Like, this doesn't sound like a 5-year rebuild to me, Colin. Like, this sounds like maybe 2.
What they're doing is they're putting their eggs in 2 different buckets and waiting to see which one looks safer, and then it will be full throttle, I think.
Yeah.
And it's one will take off sooner rather than the other. Either they'll hit on a draft pick and they'll hit on another draft pick and go, okay, this is the timeline we got to follow, and we're only going to take younger stars or stuff like that, or it's going to be someone came to us where we can get this guy who's really good and we don't have to give up too many picks, and then we weasel over into, add another guy and then we draft a guy, so it's fluidity, flexibility, all that stuff.
Yeah. I'll say this about Giannis and I'll stop here. Obviously, he's one of the most dominant players in the game. There's no doubting that. But I feel that he cheats the game at times. The guy travels almost every time he touches the ball.
He's a football player who picked up a basketball.
Yeah,
that's playing football out there. That's a little harsh, but
no, you're right.
You know what I mean.
On offense and on defense, he's a football player on a basketball court. He takes more than 10 seconds at the free throw line, which is BS. And Nets fans and a lot of other fans were calling him out during the playoffs. Now, that's nitpicking, but that's still like
breaking a rule. You break the rules. You should, like,
yes. He gets away with things and kind of plays this act like, like he's this really nice guy. And I'm sure he's a very, very nice guy. I'm not coming at Giannis Antetokounmpo as a person or his family or anything, but comes across as like this happy-go-lucky guy. But he does some dirty shit, man. And like that
the
player,
players know that too. I've heard from people who are close to NBA, like a source, dare I say, the NBA community, the players see right through Giannis's good.
Stars too, and they're stars too. I've spoken to stars who genuinely.
I have a feeling we're talking about the same person or group of people. Yeah.
And look, that stuff doesn't go unnoticed. I mean, you remember what he did to Kyrie. Like
Yeah.
that
I still can't
again,
decide if that was intentional or not. I just don't know what he was doing. It didn't look like he was boxing out. I'm not. Yeah.
I don't
We
know
don't have
how
to
his
go too
foot.
far down, but
No, and I'm not trying. I'm just trying to use that as an example because
yeah,
he's
yeah.
done it
Keep
so
going.
many times. He did even with Claxton. I don't know if it was this year or last year, but like their arms got hooked and he like threw
Oh
Claxton
yeah.
onto the floor.
Yeah,
Like there are so many times that we watch this guy and I'm like, he's
he's got the best PR team because it's this wholesome story. This poor kid from Greece grew to be an all-time great NBA player. Everyone's gonna get behind that. Even I catch
yeah,
myself doing it sometimes. Like it's a cool story, but that makes it easier to look away from some things that are corny and hurtful to the game, and sometimes
yeah,
hurtful to the other players on the court.
yeah. I think Nets fans, no matter how good he is, would have a very hard time rooting for him. Now they start winning games, that changes really fast. But
Yeah,
if this rumor is true and this is the right guy, like that they're eyeing and coveting, like Mets fans are not going to forget all of these battles that they've gone through with this guy and the
yeah,
cheap shit he's done. Excuse my language, but it's firing me up because it is like you said. There's players that I've spoken to. I'm sure you have too. That they don't respect him, and in fact, it really angers them
yeah.
for
And
certain things that he does.
it's phony stuff. Let's just call it, yeah. And I don't want to deal with Thanasis running around the Barclays Center like
No.
Johnny
But
Chase of fucking basketball.
that's your best analogy
I
of the
can't take
day.
credit for that. I saw that on Twitter years ago, but
That is a
it is spot on.
great. That is awesome. Colin, that might be your best analogy yet. The halfback option was solid. That was good.
I cannot take full credit. I saw that on Twitter somewhere years ago, but banged. It totally
for
valid.
for our entourage fans there. You know, I've met every single member of the entourage crew at Barclays Center at a
That's
Nets
fire.
game.
I did not. I know Turtle's a huge Knicks fan and loves the NBA, so he's out and
Yeah.
about all the
He
time.
was at a Knicks game one time and I met him. And he's
That's
cool.
dope. That's dope. Yeah,
Vinny Chase, not the nicest guy in the world.
that's what I've heard, but I like. I don't know. I don't know any of the guys. Like, I've heard the same of Kevin Connolly though, but
He's all right. He just waves.
he's a little pricky in the show though.
He is. He's E. He falls in love with every woman that he looks at. He's
Hey,
just
bro,
E.
I would fall in love with
Oh,
Stone too.
hey, that makes two of us, buddy. Moving on, we're gonna get to mailbag questions in a second. Colin,
All right.
this is something that D Rock is going crazy in the comments, but I wanted to ask you this. I asked it to Nets fans on Twitter, and I thought it was a fun game. Just the NBA announced the draft lottery. Now, on a serious note, the draft lottery May 12th, 2025. This is going to be one of the biggest days in recent Nets history in a long time. And I know we've said that a lot in the past couple of years, but this
Yeah.
lottery night is really going to be crucial. It doesn't get any bigger
Yeah.
than that for this organization at this point in time, and even in the last couple of years. Um, I was joking around. I wanted to just have some fun. Colin Helwig, if you had to have one person represent the Nets and get them that lucky number one, who would it be? The last time that they did this, it was Irina Pavlova, who was in the front office back when Derek Favors was chosen third. So who would you pick to represent the Brooklyn Nets?
That's a good question. Mr. Whammy has been a big one on Twitter. I have yet to come up with an argument for someone better myself. So I would lean with Mr. Whammy. I think he would love it too, and it would just be the event for him to be up there doing the ping pong balls like as they're like falling or whatever. And then and if the Nets get the first overall pick, then he like skyrockets to where like the Whammy has altered the course of NBA history. It's a great story in the making. Um, Ellie isn't bad either. If we want to shout out the Liberty part of the team, I don't know. You got an interesting look on your face. I feel like you got someone better in the back pocket.
Whammy is the front runner.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know if the Nets are going to send a fan down there. As much as they respect Whammy, this would
I
be
agree.
great television.
I wondered, has anyone ever done that? I don't know. That's something it crossed my mind too. But keep
I
going.
don't know, but Whammy is so valued, obviously, in Nets culture and in the fan base, front office, everybody. Everybody loves Whammy. Like, how could you not? Honestly, Colin, it would make for great television. Like you said, while he's trying to whammy the picks and everything, it would make for good television. And the NBA loves that. We
Yeah.
know they love that.
Yes.
But I can't see the Nets doing that. I think that if I'm Joe Tsai or I'm Sean Marks and I'm sitting in that seat, it's something I don't know if they really think about it. I don't know how this process works, but I think I'm sending Clara Wusai down there. She has done so much for Barclays Center, for Brooklyn, for the New York Liberty, and the Brooklyn Nets themselves. Her alone was the reason why KD stayed longer than he did. Like she was a mediator. Like
Yeah.
I don't know what it is. Like the fans don't necessarily agree with everything Joe Tsai does. They certainly don't agree with everything that Sean Marks does. I kind of feel like Clara is that middle way that like nobody has anything to bad to say about her because she's represented the organization and Brooklyn as a whole very well.
Yeah, no, I think that's a good one. Yeah, it seems like she's there's like a certain there's just better press has been around her, like, and I'm not saying
Yeah.
that's been us giving it to her or it hasn't been undeserved anything but it's when there's a story written about her, it tends to be something good. So I do think there's a certain warmth that comes with her. If I were to bet on it, I do say I'll throw this in and then we can move on. This has been the year of Vince Carter custody battle between the Nets and the Raptors. I think the Nets, I could see them trying to get the last laugh and having VC do it. He's been working with Yes Network this year. It would kind of make sense. He's very much been reacquainted with the team more than he has at any other point since his retirement. I think it would make a little bit of sense.
That's what a lot of people are saying too. I would love to see it. Growing up, VC be one of my favorite players. But what if Toronto wants him to go do it? They're not going to want Drake to go do it now.
Yeah.
They're certainly not going to want Drake to go mush them over there. So what if Toronto takes VC? Then can we send Kenyon Martin or Derek Coleman? They were the last and only 2 first-round picks and first picks the Nets have ever had.
I'm trying to think who would be the funniest person.
Me, you, Bob Windrum. D-Rock says Richard Jefferson.
Or I bet RJ would have fun with it. He has fun with everything, but I don't know, it was
Joe Como. The team. Yeah. I mean, Joe's been around forever. I'd love to see someone from the New Jersey days like come back. And, like,
yeah, that would be cool.
I would say rest in peace to my man Herb. If Herb was still around, I think he would have been the guy.
Yeah.
But
I hope they do, but like I understand when teams are like, oh, let's just like put like the coach out there or like a player out there, but I think it's cool when teams do something interesting. So I hope that they do that and do someone who isn't necessarily a player, Jordy Fernandez or assistant coach, something like that. Yeah.
I think when the Cavs won the first overall pick, they had the owner's son there, who was really young at the time.
That's
if I'm not
fun.
mistaken. Yeah, at least it's a kid, man. Unless
how old was he?
He was young. He was like
okay,
8, 9 years old.
That's okay. I take it. When I hear owner's son, I think we were talking Entourage. I'm thinking corporate America.
No.
Some suit out there.
Yeah, gotcha. I know what you're saying. All right, so
children
you're saying
are
VC.
Always welcome. Yeah.
Whammy and VC for Collin.
Yeah.
Whammy, Clara Wusai, and sleeper pick Sly Fox for Pooch.
That would be fire.
Yeah.
Bring back mascot.
Yeah.
Be a hell of a way of introducing it.
All right, we're moving on to mailbag time, Colin. You ready for this or what?
Let's do it.
We've got the one, the only D-Rock, and he's not only asking a question on X, but he's in here right now. Shout out to you, D-Rock, always rocking with us, and everybody else that's in here right now. Whether it's live, whether you're listening to this afterwards, we appreciate you guys in supporting the Brooklyn podcast. D-Rock wants to know which players should Sean Marks consider gambling upon in a trade in order to break out under Jordy Fernandez's culture and system. D-Rock goes on to say that Cooper Flagg is a safe bet. Zion Williamson is a true gamble. And we touched on Zion, Colin. But he says Zion is a true gamble, especially since he wanted the Knicks. Can Brooklyn trust him? What do you think?
There goes my phone.
That's your answer to Zion.
It kind of is, like I said it earlier. I think it's too early for Zion. we talked for 20 minutes to begin this that we need to lose games, and it may be tough to stomach, but all in all, it's probably for the better future of the team. Zion Williamson is going to go out and help the Nets not lose games. He's a freaking top 10 player when he's healthy. So a couple years from now, hell yeah, give it a shot. If you're, you know, trying to win, but you're still kind of younger and you're looking for a big piece, yeah, I think it'd be a great fit. Just not right now. I think in terms of trade guys, the Nets seemed like they really want to do their work over the summer, so I don't see them, like taking a swing at everyone. Like where trades are exciting and everything, but I don't think we should get away with what we've been talking about, which is bottoming out so that we can, get a ton of players in the draft. The Nets are going to have 4 draft picks this year. I think ideally those are 4 first rounders. They're 4 good players. They're all going to be guys we want to be in the rotation. I think in the offseason, I don't know if we're going to get to this later or not, but there's some smaller scale guys that I think kind of fit. The Nets have a very kind of odd and like distinct kind of guys, group of players that I think they're going to be looking for in terms of reclamation projects, still young, but also cheap, but kind of fit the Jordy Fernandez bill. I think Lonzo Ball is one of those guys, being a two-way player, being a guy who is a good point guard, can be a veteran, lead the team, but is also like, I don't think Lonzo Ball is going to go out and win you X amount of games. You know what I mean? So I think that's a guy to look at. He's probably going to be cheap because of the injury history. Not one I particularly like, but John Collins is one that struck my mind. I think he has a player option. He might want some more financial security. I could see the Nets have been tied to him for God knows how long. That's one where I could see the Nets throwing some kind of money at him that, Utah or whoever else doesn't want. He'll have to opt out of Utah. And I don't think the Nets will give him, nor should they give him, more than the $25 million that he's going to make next year. But, maybe they can give him a 3-4 year deal for a little bit less, more in the long term. And that will be enticing to him. Pooch,
Yeah.
what do you got?
We've heard a lot about De'Aaron Fox. I like De'Aaron Fox. I don't love him for what he would cost, unless it's in free agency or they're able to get him on the cheap. I think De'Aaron would be great in Brooklyn. I think he could thrive. But I do like Zion in the future. Not now. If he could show that he could actually be on the court, that would be great. A couple of the names I've been thinking about, like you've seen Colin Sexton's name kind of coming up and down. Like Colin Sexton was solid in Cleveland. Like
Yeah.
I really, really liked him there. And the Nets don't have a floor general for the future. If he's someone that, again, you could buy low on, and this is not for this year. I could see him thriving under Jordy, under the right guidance, like under the right coach, knowing that he has job security, that he's not going to get traded or he has to compete with Darius Garland or anybody else. Just a name that I literally just looked up and was like, that's not a bad idea. I'm looking at 2026, Colin. Like I'm not looking at this year's free agency class. Like I just can't see them swinging for the fences or looking for anything big.
No,
But
nor should
Sexton,
they. Yeah.
right. John Collins is a good answer. I really, really like that. I do like this is way out of left field, but like I want to see and monitor this situation in Minnesota. Like, is Anthony Edwards going to be able to keep his cool there for 2 more years? Excuse me, there. Is like we've seen him have a lot of outbursts this year, and he's still young, and they're not going to give him up anytime soon. But 3 years down the line, if Minnesota's not going anywhere, if they're just regressing, and he's getting frustrated, is Anthony Edwards going to be on the block one day?
I mean, the block probably isn't the right terminology because I don't know if Minnesota would ever want to trade him, but could he request a trade? Hell yeah. I don't know how you sell this to a young player. Congratulations. You just took us to the Western Conference Finals, and now we're going to, like, the first time we've been to the Western Conference Finals in God knows how long, definitely in my lifetime.
Yeah.
Now, guess what we're going to do? We're going to trade your running mate, your second best player, one of the most versatile centers ever, for Julius Randle, whose contract is going to expire, essentially a salary dump. So you literally had it all, and you just decided, all right, we're going to do something cheap. That would drive me absolutely insane. I'd be like, he's still probably too young to where it's like it would be kosher for him to ask for a trade, but it's starting to build in the back of my head. It would be for me. I'm sure it is for him. It makes a whole lot of sense.
Right. Like when I hear Giannis's name, I hear Ant.
Hmm.
I hear Ant. That's all I'm saying. Like they're putting out Giannis. I'm thinking maybe 2 years after
Well,
that
one
fact.
is
Like
30, one is like 24. Like one obviously makes a lot more sense for the Brooklyn, the rebuilding
right,
Brooklyn Nets. So
right. Now anyway, and that's not to say like D Rock was asking specifically under Jody Fernandez's system. It's
mm,
kind of hard to like pluck these specific role players out or somebody like I appreciate that you put Lonzo Ball out there, these reclamation projects, but like it's kind of hard to get a grasp of what their system really is right now because they're
yeah,
not like they're mixing and matching players and systems. It's just it's very hard to say.
yeah. It's they have a lot of different things that are motivating them. A lot of different things that they're looking for. It's a very thin tunnel that they're when they're looking at free agents. There's like six filters on there. It's like, are you young? Are you cheap? Are you going to fit the Jordy Fernandez system? All of these things are going to cut things away. So
Yeah. Now, what about this just absolute hot take? Like they get Zion Williamson and just I don't know. They fuck around and find out. Go get R.J. Barrett. Reunite the Duke squad.
they're doing that this year.
No, no, no. This is the future. I'm not doing
Okay.
anything this year.
Well,
I'm
then
trading Cam Johnson. That's it. That's all I'm doing this year.
I mean, cool. Like, congrats on the seventh seed in the East. Like, you're gonna need to do a lot more than that. I'd still rather have someone sick out of the draft this year and maybe next year, and then hit on your later first rounders and bring in some, like they got all these second rounders. Bring me like 20 more Nick Claxtons. Like, hell yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's better than Clax is having a down year, but I'm not giving up on him just yet.
No, no. D Rock, you sent us down a rabbit hole where
Yeah.
I'm saying R.J. Barrett and Zion Williamson on the Nets in 2027. Oh God. Thank you, D Rock. We appreciate you.
Yes,
Put
sir.
who you want in the chat there, my man. Colin, we got it. We got one or two more left in us here.
Hmm.
So we got Rehala 88. Rehala, baby. Colin, we have all this cap space, so please talk about what are realistic options for the Nets in the offseason. Should they sign free agents? Who? Or trade for other teams' bad contracts in exchange for picks? So basically he's asking what should they do this offseason, Colin Helwig?
Yeah, I don't think they should trade for bad contracts. Maybe one or two if you really believe in the guy, and it's like 2 or 1 years left instead of like 3 or 4. When the Nets did that the first time, it was because they didn't have any draft picks and they needed picks one way. They needed picks, so it made sense. They have a ton of picks now, so they don't have to do that. I don't think handicapping yourself cap wise is gonna solve any problems, even at the expense of more picks. They got a ton of picks. They hit on them, they'll be all right. They'll be able to build that team. In terms of realistic acquisitions, that's where I thought of, I kind of like the Lonzo one. I don't necessarily love the John Collins one, but I think those are the two like realistic ones that kind of make sense to me where they kind of fit the bill where Collins he's got a player option, so there's a lot that needs to happen there. But Lonzo specifically, I could see him not being that expensive. He plays both sides of the ball, makes sense for Jordy Fernandez. He almost feels the Nets have had a history of signing players like him. He feels like a combination between like D'Angelo Russell when they traded for him and like TJ Warren, where it was like you've had some rough injury history, but you were once like touted as like this, like you're going to be like a point guard of the future. You know what I mean? I think he makes sense, and I think he's still young enough where maybe if they're going to win a championship with Cooper Flag, odds are he's not the point guard for that. That's probably going to have to be too far in the future. But if they do something that maybe speeds up the quick rebuild we kind of talked about, you could see him being where he's still young enough. He could be a part of when that team is good and, also be there to kind of like mentor some of the younger guys. So I like Zoe to the Nets.
Interesting. Very, very interesting take there. I don't have much. You know how I feel about this offseason. They have 4 first round picks that they're going to have to pay right off the
Mm-hmm.
bat, and then potentially in 4 years sign to max deals and some other big deals. So they can't handicap themselves financially
Mm-hmm.
this summer. They could
Yeah.
go get a couple of reclamation projects like you mentioned,
Mhm.
but they can't do anything dramatic. Now, the name that is interesting that I like is not Zion, but Brandon Ingram, but he wants the max. That's
Yeah.
the problem. Like I love Bi, but I don't like him for the max.
Yeah, I like him too, but that's also the other thing about Lonzo Ball. I said earlier, I don't think he's good enough to the point where he's going to go out and win games and ruin your tank. I think Brandon Ingram is good enough to do that. Where he's
Yes.
he's he's definitely on. Like he's a better player than D'Angelo Russell, and D'Angelo Russell is doing it right now. I
Yeah.
think that he would be another guy where it's too soon. It's just too soon, especially for the max.
Yeah. And I think we also again have to see who they're drafting. Like they get Cooper Flag. They're not going to need Bi. They're not going to need um, Zion. They're not going to need Cam Johnson for that matter. Like this
Hmm.
is going to be somebody that's going to slide right into the four. So
Correct, correct.
taking the last one, then we're moving on here. Alan Ho. Alan, thanks for the question. Colin, your thoughts on the vet situations? D'Lo, CJ, Boyan Bogdanovich, and Melton.
Hmm. Well, Melton's gone after this year. That
Melton's
was just
Melton.
we're just gonna help him heal up and
Yeah,
good luck. Bogdanovich, we talk about the other guys all day, Cam Johnson and D'Lo. So I'll talk about it. It's been interesting that Bogdanovich has yet to be traded. You know, we said that they took back Melton. That was just to make the deal work, and they'll let him heal up, and then he'll be an unrestricted free agent this year or this summer. That's the same thing that could happen to Bogdanovich, but he's we don't know much about his injury. The team's not reporting much. We haven't really been given any updates. I feel like everyone understands that he's not going to play for the team because he'd just be another veteran in the mix that won't be here. He's not someone you have to develop, and he could hurt the team by helping them win games that they shouldn't be. So I think it's a very curious position he's in. I don't. When's the last time the Nets bought someone out in the middle of a season?
Joe Johnson, maybe,
I just
maybe.
I think they're gonna. It would make sense to try to trade him, but also at the same time, I don't know why they haven't done it yet. So he's an
Yeah,
enigma to me. A lot of people have been talking on Twitter about maybe the Nets extending D'Angelo Russell. I don't think they're going to do that. I think they just got him because they needed someone to match the salary to get D'Angelo
yeah,
Russell out of there, and they thought, it'll give the fans something to be excited about in this dreary season. We're probably not going to get a better all-in-all option than that. So that's where
yeah,
my head is at.
yeah. I don't think D'Lo's. I don't think there's any scenario where D'Lo's coming back.
Yeah.
Enjoy it for this year, Nets fans. Don't kick him on the way out. He provided us with a lot of good memories. Um, I also wonder about what he said. Like we have goals to reach. Like is he talking about himself? Like I have to get the hell out of here by the trade deadline. Like I'm hurt, but I can't be hurt because I need to up my value so Sean and the Nets can get me out of here by February 6th.
Hmm.
You know, that's again like really reading between the lines and like just assuming things, but you know, maybe they do have the intention of flipping him at the deadline. And we said that when he got traded here.
It would make sense, but when we talked about this last week, but then you got to find another X amount of money that matches that contract that will then expire this summer, or you start cutting into your future cap space. Like it's one or the other.
Yeah. Well, want to thank D Rock, Alan
Yeah,
Ho, Rehala 88. For anybody else listening to this, shoot us your questions. You can reach us at the Brooklyn Pod on X, the Brooklyn Pod on Instagram, the Brooklyn Pod on TikTok, and email us at thebrooklynpod@gmail.com. If you have any questions, any comments, any concerns, you know where to hit us up. Colin, you got anything that you want to say?
no, I'm chilling. Thanks to everyone for tuning in. Nets road trip right now. We are out west. It's that special time of year where I get about 5 hours of sleep every night. So if you're one of those people who stays up reading Nets Daily late night, thank you for rocking with us. Thanks for rocking with us today on the Brooklyn, and we'll see you guys next time.
Yes, sir. We got the Clippers tonight, and the Nets come home after this road trip. They got the Knicks, Suns, and KD's return. And then they have VCU retirement night against the Miami Heat. So there isn't much to look forward to in the second half of the season, Colin, but this little home stint when they come back is a little bit exciting for Nets fans. So I'm looking forward to that.
Bingo.
Until then, thanks everybody. and we'll see you next time.